Welcome to a new episode of the Perspective Shift podcast. This is our 10th episode, and for that occasion, we thought that we would do something a little bit different and talk about the top 5 lessons that we have learned in life that have changed our perception and perspective on so many things that we say and do and think about. So let's start with you. What would be your first lesson?
It's a little bit of a controversial lesson, maybe an opinion as well, to be honest. It's that no one is obligated to help you at the end of the day, regardless of the situations that you're in, the circumstances, or how well or how close the person is to you. Before I go on and explain what I mean by that, no one is obligated to help you doesn't necessarily mean that you shouldn't be asking for help. Asking for help and receiving help are two different things, because this is a lesson that you can deconstruct into many smaller things. But number one is you should still be asking for help regardless. And when people say no to you, that doesn't mean that means that you're not allowed or you can't be mad at them because they decided not to help you. Because there is nothing that says that we're obligated to help. There's nothing that says that I must, under any circumstances, be there for you or help you. It's a choice that I make. And sure, we can differentiate between the choice or the reason, the intention, the morals, and this, and so on and so on and so on. But at the end of the day, I'm under no obligation, or anyone is under any obligation to help you whatsoever. I would like, or at least I like, to connect this lesson with another smaller lesson, which is part of the same group as well, which is no one is going to come and help you. No one is going to come and get you out of the shithole that you're in, and no one is responsible for your shit. So it's like, you can always ask for help.
I really resonate with the second part you mentioned, that no one is coming to help you at some point, because for a long time I was one of these people who thought that, I don't have to do anything. Someday something will happen and I will be rescued, or maybe I will meet the right person who will take me out of this shithole that I am in. And it took me a long time to understand that's not how life works. No one is coming to save you, to help you. You're the only one who can save yourself. And as you said, you can still ask for help, and people don't have to do that. And this is also something I struggle with, like asking other people for help, because I know that they are not obligated, and I have a little problem with rejection. So it's kind of a difficult thing, but I do understand how important it is to just try and ask for help, because people want to be better, want to be good, want to be there for other people. But sometimes maybe they don't have energy, or they're just not in the right mindset.
But look at it like this. Like, this lesson for me personally is both freeing and both a bit harsh.
Mm-hmm.
It's harsh because at the end of the day, one is obligated to help you. Yeah. And it's freeing because when I ask for help, knowing that they are under no obligation to help me whatsoever doesn't make me worry whether I'm being too much on them. Because I know that they are not obligated to do that. So they have the choice to say yes or no to that. Mm-hmm. And when they say no, then I just have to respect that and accept it. The other part of the spectrum, which is, we go back to intentions and morals. Like, are they helping me because they genuinely want to help me? Or are they helping me because they want to take advantage of me, or because they want to have one-up me? But I feel like this is a little bit too much worrying about it. It's just that, for me, at least personally, it's enough to know that they are under no obligation to help me whatsoever. Yeah. And knowing that, and me asking them for help, and if they say no, just is a bit freeing, because, like, okay, they're not supposed to. Why should they help me? If they decide to help me, then I'm going to be more than grateful. And if not, then so be it.
I guess this is just one of these lessons that I heard about and I know of, but it's still something that I don't apply in my life enough, because I still, as I told you, I still struggle with asking for help, maybe because I think too much about the intentions and everything, and I don't like to be burdened on other people. So yeah, so maybe that's where I differ from you, even though I truly agree with everything that you said. So that brings me to my first lesson, mm-hmm. which is that, despite all the technological advances and the amount of information that we have in the modern age, I feel like people are drifting further and further away from understanding basic fundamentals, what life is meant to be. And if you look back in time to the, ancient Greece or many other civilizations, they just understood how life works way more than we do. Even though we have science, we have evidence, we have facts, still so many people are just so consumed with materialistic things.
That's kind of the system that we're in, because something that I've thought about as well, but it's the fact that we have got to work a job, make money, so we can stay in the cubes that we're in. Because if we don't, then somebody's going to come out and throw us away, throw us outside, and then we're going to have to do something. You have to find some way to make money.
So money is to blame.
And then you've got I wouldn't blame money, but just the it's just the norm that we live in right now. That's how I look at it. Like, I agree with you, because like when I read about, especially Stoicism, and you know that I'm reading meditation right now from Marcus Aurelius. When I read meditations or anything about related to philosophy or Greece in ancient societies and so on, I relate to them in a way that the way they think, the way they process life is a bit different than a lot of people do nowadays. But I don't think it's that they understood life better. I think it's just that the circumstances they were in allowed them and made it easier for them to ponder about life. But since nowadays we're living in a little bit more capitalist
distractions,
but we live in a more of capitalism, and then because of I'm not blaming capitalism here, but because of capitalism and the system that we've got right nowadays is that you just have to work so you can have enough money to do this and this, and then because of the, like you said, the modern age society, technology, network, and this, you have more channels to kind of compare yourself with other people, compare what I've got with what they've got, or at least what they show that they have, and then that creates this materialistic board, and then people stress about the small thing instead of pondering about life and the meaning of life.
Like new types of religions in the world, like the whole system that we have, and how people just sometimes worship other people, and they just want to get more cars and the biggest house and have more wealth, and it's just all things that eventually, you think about it objectively, is just meaningless. And I'm not saying that we should never think about money and all of these materialistic things, but they should serve us as a tool to maybe, have easier lives, but we shouldn't obsess over them and make them our endpoint and our goal to have all of these things. So yeah.
This is somewhat related to one of my lessons, which is, for me, I just wrote it down as a human experience. That's those two words, for me, make a lot of sense, but of course, I'm gonna have to explain it. And it's everything that we go through is just human experience. The hardships, the easy trips, the joy, the sadness, the depression, all of these emotions, all of these experiences that we go through, I look at them as like, this is just human experience. Because we are in a globalized and a more modern society with all the technology and all the globalization that we've got, a lot of people started getting in touch with each other, and they started making concepts, labels, and naming things. So I'm not trying to disregard anyone's feelings here, but you hear the word depression a lot nowadays. Like, every human being on this planet is depressed. But if you actually want to go and check if they're depressed or not, I would say, I don't have the numbers, it's just my own opinion, probably about 90%. It's not that you're depressed, it's not that you're ill.
But you heard about it somewhere.
It's just that it's human experience. And no one has ever told you that this is human experience and this is how it is. And just because everybody else says that they're depressed or whatever, you start labeling yourself as depressed.
Yeah. This is actually the side effect of labeling things. Like, you know me, I am someone who really likes labels, because labels help you explain things without going around, and it saves you time, and it gives you a name for something that you're feeling or sensing or thinking about, and it just makes sense. Like, okay, this is why I felt the way that I do. And
differentiate, though, I'm going to interrupt here. There's a difference between labeling yourself and labeling you the way you're.
Sure.
All right.
Yeah.
So there's a difference between someone who's going like, I'm feeling depressed right now, which is like, okay, you're going through a phase that is a bit depressing or that's a bit hard, and this is what you're going through, and this is part of human experience. And someone else is going like, I'm depressed, even though they're just going through the phase, where it's a normal human experience to go through the suffering and the pain or the hardships, and then from this phase that's making you feel depressed, You went ahead and you labeled yourself as someone who's depressed, but you're not actually depressed, just that it's a depressing phase that you're going through. That doesn't make you someone who is depressed and who needs antidepressants or whatever.
Yeah.
It's just a phase, part of the human experience that you're going through. But because everyone else says they're depressed,
Yeah.
you start labeling yourself as
I
depressed.
think it's
with them.
about the way you phrase everything and distancing yourself from these labels that you're saying. Instead of saying, I'm anxious, I feel anxiety right now. You're just putting yourself more in the back seat, I guess, and observing all of these labels, or just changing the way that you're phrasing them. And it's even this is it's the same when you talk to another person and he did something that is stupid. You don't say you are stupid, but you say you did something stupid.
Exactly.
It's a big difference.
Exactly.
So yeah,
It's a difference between labeling and like we've said, you're labeling yourself or you're labeling the way that you feel.
yeah, but this is why I say it's like a side effect of all of these labels that people, it's the same when they use the word narcissist or gaslighting, and they use it everywhere for every circumstance, and for most cases it's just not accurate to use it there. So I see labels as something that is good and progressive and makes you understand yourself and other people better, but it does have a downside. So it's just the way it is. It's just like many other things in modern society that are good but can be bad at certain occasions.
What's your next?
Another lesson of mine, which is that everything that people say to you and judge you for is just a reflection of who they are.
Mm-hmm.
That it's just a reflection of all the things that they have been through in their childhood and their experiences with their parents and in school, and also related to their genes, the way that they think. And it's just never really truly about who you are as a person. And that's why we shouldn't take anything too personally. When someone is angry at you, is judging you, is calling you names, it's almost never about you. It's just about what they think of you based on all the different experiences that they had in the past. And that's something that was okay. So it's a lesson that have really helped me in my life, but it's something that I still forget sometimes. When someone is judging me or calling me names, sometimes I do get defensive and emotional, but much less than before. Like, I think it's just something that we should try to get better at, to understand that we don't know anything about other people. Like, we think that we do, but we only know the surface stuff that they show us. So who are we to say who they are and judge them for, So I think it's something that is was really life-changing for me.
It's the funny thing. This is one of the lessons that I brought for myself down, but I have it from a completely different angle. And the angle that I looked at, or that I had to come to terms with, is I don't know how to explain it that well. I don't know how to put a definition or a label on it, but I know how to explain it. Yeah. So the way that I look at it is like, if I hate myself, all right, and I'm talking to you, and then I'm going to assume, because I hate myself, I'm going to assume that you hate me as well. And then based on that, I'm going to treat you as if you were to hate me, even though if you didn't hate me. It's just the way that I feel about myself that I'm projecting onto the image that I've got of you, and the way that you treat me. So you could be doing something completely selfless, completely genuine, completely nice to me. But because I hate myself, I would go ahead and I would assume that you're doing it just so you can take advantage of me and hurt me just like everybody else did in my past.
We would assume another intention.
Exactly. And then that's the way that people project the way they feel about themselves onto the images that they make of other people.
It's kind of like projection.
It is.
This is something that I did talk about in my YouTube channel, like projection, and how everything that we do and say is just a reflection of who we are. It's never really about other people. We're just channeling our own thoughts and ideas and emotions on other people.
The lesson I've got under that: don't ever assume that things are the way that you. The same lesson, like the way that I just don't assume that people are the way they expect them to. And it goes back to the quote that, like always, gets people on at this point. I don't know who said the quote, but it's a quote that I have in my brain, which goes like, I'm not who I think I am. I'm not who you think I am. I am who I think that you think I am.
Jay Shetty?
Maybe. He's the one who said it, but he quoted from somebody else's.
It's always someone who said something.
It's a quote. I don't know the original person who said it. That's why I said I don't know.
Doesn't matter.
But it's like, I'm just making my self-image based on the self-image that I think that you've got of me, which I've made based upon my own experience and by projecting my own stuff on you. And it goes back to like when people treat you in a certain way, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're treating you in this way. It just means that you're perceiving it this way. Mm-hmm. So first of all, you can't really make the image of them in that way. And then, like you said, you can't really tell what they went through.
Yeah, you don't. Even if they tell you, you start to assume how that experience was, but you weren't there.
Exactly.
You just try to imagine.
It's completely different. Mm-hmm. It's completely different. You may go next.
So another lesson of mine, which is not really related, which is that, you know, life is not fair and that we are bound to our circumstances and luck. Our genes and environment, they play a big role on who we are as people. Mm-hmm. So let's say you are someone who is born in India, you have certain parents with certain ideology and religion, and you are someone who is born in the United States, where you are most likely a Christian, and you have different type of parents who have different rules, and you're in different culture. And this is just kind of only luck.
This is just luck.
Exactly. So some people will have more advantages than others, and other people will have more difficult life circumstances. Mm-hmm. So we shouldn't really get mad and anxious about all of these things that we can't control in life. And we should try instead to focus on the little things that we have control over, that we should just accept our fate and act accordingly, which means that, you know, okay, so my name is Anas. I was born in Syria. I have my family, and I was born in these circumstances. Some things I got lucky with, other things I got really unlucky. What can I do now? What can I change? What is under my control? What is outside of my control? And forget everything that is outside of my control and focus on these couple of things that I could change, I could improve, and make myself a better person with better circumstances. So this is also something that was really life-changing for me and took me a long time to understand how it's the same when you are jealous and envious and you're comparing yourself with other people. What are you comparing with? You're looking at one thing, one trait that they have
that you are aware of, that you're not even sure if it's
exactly, and you're not aware of all the other things that help them shape themselves into the person that they are now. You're just looking at one thing that is positive, maybe you like, you enjoy, and all the other things that they're struggling with. Maybe their parents died, and maybe they were born in a war country just like we did, and maybe, you know, they had a poor family and they have a mental disability, or maybe they stutter in something. There's so many things that are just chaotic and we can't control, and everyone is born with completely different circumstances. And even if you are born in the same neighborhood, in the same street, just neighbors, you still have completely different circumstances from one another. So yeah, this was really life-changing for me, and I always think about it whenever I meet another person and observe them.
It's definitely the way to go about it. But again, it's similar to one of the lessons that I've got here, which is you just have to play life by the hand that you were dealt.
Yeah.
That means that you were dealt these circumstances, these whatever, and you can't really control them. This is just how life happened to you. And then this is the hand that you've got, and then you've got to play with it. It's just like when, I don't know who said this as well, but it's just like you're playing cards or you're playing poker, you got a hand. This is the hand that you have. Yeah. This is the hand that you've got to play with. You can't go to the judge and be like, hey, I would like to change my papers.
Exactly.
Those are the cards that you got. And I related it, of course, to that no one is playing. This is the hand that you were dealt. All right. I know one to blame is, who do you want to blame? You want to blame God? Hey, what's that going to do? It's not going to change anything. And besides, you're blaming an entity that you don't know if it exists or not. You just believe that it does, or you believe that it doesn't.
Or do you blame your parents?
Or do you blame your parents? Or do you blame people? Like, are you blaming another human being that is just equally flawed as you are, if not even more? And then the other question that arises from that, what do you gain by blaming somebody else?
You just like to feel better about yourself, maybe.
It's not even feeling better about yourself, because when you're doing somebody else injustice, at the end of the day, you're only doing yourself the injustice. So if you're blaming somebody else, going by philosophical
It's just
rules,
escapism, in a
you're just
sense.
blaming yourself at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And then from that on, I also went, like, the continuation of the lesson is like, there's no point in blaming anyone. There's no point. It makes things easier, sure, it might for a certain period of time, but at the end of the day, it just makes it worse for you and for other people. And then don't complain, because also complaining is not going to get you anywhere. What are you Are you just complaining about life being like?
That doesn't change. If you complain,
like,
nothing changes.
It's like you complain. It's like a tree that's complaining to nature because nature let the tree, instead of going straight up, that it's a little bit bent over. It's nature.
Like,
it's
sure,
life.
Life is not fair. It can be really shitty and cruel, and it's okay to feel sad about that sometimes. But at some point, you gotta accept how reality is. Stop escaping from all.
The difference there, I guess, it's not that people get sad; it's that people get angry. And you have to remember that anger and sadness, all right, they are two different faces of the same coin. I look at it like,
I don't know about that.
I look at it like anger.
Anger is just a mask.
Exactly. Anger just masks sadness. And with time, it's easier to get angry than it is to get sad.
But that is why anger is a problematic emotion, while sadness is okay to feel.
Yeah, that's what that,
I do.
That's why I wanted to point this out.
I just want to say, I do feel sad about all of this. Like, this is a lesson that I have learned and it's always in my mind. And I do feel sad about it pretty often, that I don't like that life isn't fair. I wish that people had more similar circumstances, that people had the same amount of luck. It's kind of brutal, but that's the way it is.
But the thing is, like, there I was meaning to talk about the anger, because a lot of people misunderstand their anger with their sadness.
Sure.
So I was mentioning that anger is not going to really get you anywhere. It's okay to be sad. But going back to your point, you're sad about the circumstances of life, but not trying to be harsh. I get it. So people, when I've had many people ask me, like, what is the superpower that you would love to have? Like, what is one of the superpowers that you would love to have? And I was like, the power to take pain away from people. That you make other lives easier. But at the end of the day, the question arises, which is like, are you sad that life is being life?
Yeah, but you can't not feel sad. Like,
I know.
I think the problem is when this emotion is stopping you from getting better at your life. If it's holding you back, if it's making you really depressed, I think then it's a problem. But you're just feeling sad for the sake of it, and you're still moving on with your life, and you do realize how reality is, then it's not a problem. Because I know that I do feel sad about that, but I wouldn't take that away. I don't want to take that sadness away. I accept that emotion. Just some days I'm waking up, I just dislike how reality is. It's just the way it is. And I'm just maybe a little bit more melancholic than normal, than many other people. And that's okay. It's just the way I am. It's just part of me. So that's why I don't mind feeling of sadness. But when it comes to anger, if you're angry about that and blaming other people and complaining and being resentful, then it's a problem. It might not be a problem right now, but it will be eventually, where you're just going to be really frustrated about everything.
You're just gonna be vengeful.
Yeah, exactly.
You're gonna be vengeful, and vengeful toward
absolutely
who? Nothing.
Toward your parents.
And then at the end of the day, you're gonna come to the point where you realize that I've been vengeful and mad about things for years
that are outside of your control.
No reason.
For things that are outside of your control.
And then with the vengefulness and the angerness, I feel like a part of, because it masks a lot of stuff, especially your emotions, your authenticity. Then with time you start losing that as well. Like being vengeful and mad and angry at the world or at other people doesn't really serve a purpose. It just makes the situation long-term worse.
It might bring you ease right now, but
it doesn't even bring you ease. It makes you feel like your actions are being justified. But it actually just it doesn't make you feel ease, because you're just more angry, you're more stressed, you're more annoyed, you're more mad. It doesn't even bring you ease, to be honest. It just gives you that fakeness that you're in control, and then it's not your fault, and it's others who did this and this and that. It doesn't really make it easier.
So
You can go on to the next or last.
actually, the next lesson is pretty related to this, which is that your perception of the world is merely fiction of what reality really is. So this is also tied to. I mean, first let's look at the perception that humans have.
Mm-hmm.
Even when you compare yourself to another human, you have completely different genes and personalities, and even the environment that you grew up in, everything that you've learned changes your perception of reality. I mean, when it comes to gene, even look how some people perceive colors different than other people. Some people see more ranges and more nuanced ranges of colors, while other people are maybe some people are colorblind, some people are this. And then you look at the bigger spectrum, which is when you compare your perception of animals who perceive the world in a completely different way. And they go around the world hunting for food and sleeping also in completely different way than we do. So that's why we shouldn't take ourselves too seriously and not fixate on our opinions and thoughts and everything that we hold to be true, because it can change. Who are you to know all the answers to the universe and the world and the people around you? Like, no matter what you know, I think it's important to remain open.
You know nothing.
You still, that's why you should always remain open.
It's like that's. I'm sorry for interrupting you there, but for me, that's the irony of human beings, is that we're kind of aware that we know nothing, but we still think that our knowledge amounts to everything.
That's normal.
But we also know that, like I said, it's like this.
The more you know, the less you know.
It's contradiction. Exactly. It's not only this, but even when you know that you know nothing, you still assume that you know a lot, and that's the contradiction of knowledge. Like,
exactly, and
you know that your knowledge is like only a water droplet in the sea, but for some reason you imagine that the sea wouldn't exist without the water droplet.
And I do feel that and do suffer from that sometimes, because I do love knowledge. I love knowing more about science and history, psychology, and everything. But the more I know, I feel like the less I know. Even when I'm trying to learn a new skill and I'm improving at, like, no, now I know more, but the sea is getting bigger and bigger, and there's more things that I don't know. But I think this is just the way it is, and I would never change that. Like, I would never take away all the knowledge that I have. But I think the point is that we shouldn't hold too tightly to the things that we believe in and remain open-minded, that things can change and your opinions can change, and just don't take yourself too seriously, and always have an open ear to understand things in different way and gaining new perspectives and listening to other people, because they might offer something new even when you don't realize that. This is something that I used to struggle with, that I have an opinion about something and I'm like, I don't want to listen to other people. And then wait a minute, maybe they do have something to say. Maybe they do perceive things in a different way that might help me improve the way that I see things. So always keep an open mind and listen to other people and
be open to life.
Always be open to life. Yeah.
I look at it like, that I've been getting into Alan Watts lately, and it's one of the many things that he talked about. Obviously, is and he called it about the art of letting go, of not being rigid, not holding too tight on everything, just art of letting go. And he also went on and talked about how to wiggle with life, how to dance, how life is a dance. And of course, I don't want to get into it. It's going to be a long topic that I'm not going to shut up about it for like hours. So I want to avoid getting into this. But there's a sense of safety when people are rigid and they cling on to what they know, because this is what they know and this is safe. This is what's familiar to them. And when they try to let go, they don't know what's going to happen.
Unpredictable.
Exactly. And that can be scary for a lot of people. And I can relate to that. I've had that for many years in my life. But at some point, just like you said, you come to realize that life happens. And you don't necessarily have to feel safe. You don't necessarily have to be in control all the time. Sometimes you can just let life happen and enjoy whatever you can from it. And that brings me to my last lesson. And it's completely different. Now we're going to go back to a little bit more technical stuff, which is life is a balanced equation. This is something that I had to learn This is something that I've heard actually Simon Singh talk about it. But that was also years ago. And when I heard him talk about it, I was like, oh yeah, that makes kind of sense. But it's one of those lessons that you tend to forget.
It's like a seed that was planted,
Exactly. And then something happens, and then you start realizing like, oh shit, I've heard this a while ago.
Now it's connecting more.
And then you start understanding it. That life is a balance equation. That means whether it's what you want to focus on in your life, like say you want to focus on your finances, for example, we talked about this a lot, then other areas of your life are going to they're going to lose some value, some priorities, because like when you're focusing on this, so we're gonna talk about health. So if you're focusing on health, on being healthier, working out more, doing more sports, whatever it is, then by the law that life is balance equation, you're gonna have to spend more time doing sports and eating, which means that you're gonna have less time to spend on other things.
Sure.
And then in return, which means you're gonna have to eat healthier. By eating healthier, you're eliminating options that you'd have had normally or before that. It's a balance equation.
Whatever you're doing, you're cutting something else.
Exactly. And I always look at it like, I always take it as well from a different perspective, which is you can't have the one thing without the other. You can't have a trust without offering trust to yourself. You can't have love without loving.
You get back what you give.
Exactly. It's sort of like karma, beside that, it's to add to that, technically, I feel like you can always be the start of things. So like, sure, life's a balance equation, but like we said, like you can't have something without giving it yourself. But I like to say that you can always be the start of it. You don't have to wait till somebody else starts the equation for you.
Initiate more things.
Initiate it, but just don't wait for somebody else to start the equation for you. Just start the equation yourself and see how it goes. See if you get back what you give.
And it's something that takes time.
It does.
And this is actually connected perfectly to my last lesson, which is that, the good things that are sustainable in life are achieved after a long period of hard work. And that anything that is rushed and gained immediately must have like a catch in some way that, is not going to be sustainable. And just in that sense that, all the things that give you instant gratifications are just not sustainable. They're not going to last, and they're going to hinder your life in some way. And of course, I'm not saying that we should cut instant gratifications completely from our lives, but the important thing that we are doing, the things that bring us joy and happiness and, all the goal-oriented stuff should be things that are sustainable. And to achieve these things, we have to work hard for a long time and be patient with ourselves, because we're not going to see the results right away. While the things that give us immediate gratifications, you just open the movie, you watch it, or you just decide to watch porn, or you take drugs. All these things are going to bring you instant pleasure. You're going to be happy in the moment, but after the activity, when it's done, you're going to notice that you just took a couple of steps back. So how do you balance that? You know what I mean? So this is something that actually I've been someone who lived on instant gratification. This was everything that I care about. That I just want to take drugs. I just want to do this. I just want to chill. And I don't like hard work. I didn't like waiting for things. And it took me, just like all the other lessons, basically, it took me a long time to understand. You have to wait for things. You have to work hard. Even if you don't see results, you don't see anything changing, doesn't mean it is not changing. You just gotta give it more time and just keep doing the things that you're doing. Trust yourself, commit, and just push forward.
We go back to the fundamentals. Just choose something and stick with it.
Exactly.
See how it goes. And it's okay to suck sometimes. It's okay to suck sometimes. But I feel like I don't know. I can't really say much about this. It's still something that I'm playing around with myself, which is Ali Abdal talked about this, and so did Alex Hormonzi. And they both took a nice perspective from it. Ali Abdal was like, I would like if it was fun.
Yeah, that's what I mean by the balance.
And then Alex Hormonzi asked the question, what would it be like if it was easy? The reason I'm mentioning this is because we usually, and I'm one of those people that usually we try to do things the hard way and make it seem like it's so hard, and we're
Even though it
sacrificing
doesn't have
so
to be.
much, just because we want to tell a story. I'm sorry to burst a lot of bubbles here. This bursted my own bubble as well, which is like, I'm gonna put in the work, I'm gonna do this and this, and I'm gonna sacrifice all of this, and then I'm gonna go through so much suffering and pain and sacrificing just so I can get to where I want to. No, you're just after a story to tell yourself and to other people.
Like, oh, I've worked hard for this, but sometimes, oh sure, sometimes this extreme hard work is necessary to achieve something.
Sure, I'm not saying it's not, but I'm just saying, like, just, you don't have to always like to tell yourself that it's hard work, it's only suffering, it's only pain to get there.
It doesn't have to be.
Just take a step back, and not necessarily take a step back, but like remember that you might be just after a story, and remember that you can always do some things the easier way. Sometimes you can do some things in a more fun, joyful way.
I think the problem is that we think if we take the easy way, if we take breaks, if we do this in an easier way, we think that we're slacking. And this is something that Mark Manson talked about, I think in his last podcast, that how do you know if you are slacking or if you're just taking a break or just trying to make something a bit easier, even though you are hardworking? So it's something that is hard to see. You just gotta try things and you will realize, I guess, if you're like, what works for you, you know, you don't have to struggle more than you should. And yeah, so that's what I mean by the balance, that it's not about cutting all the instant gratifications in your life. It's just about being more conscious of what you're doing and why you are doing the thing. So even if you're doing something that will give you an instant gratification, maybe you make you take a step or two back. Sometimes that is okay and necessary, so that you take 10 steps forward after it.
Sometimes the only way forward is by going back.
So you need to find the balance, and this is also something that I
feel like, though, just be clear there, because who said this? Here we go again. Okay, doesn't matter. Somebody said it in my mind. Your problems adapt to your solution. And when I heard this for the first time, I applied it to the balance, which is like, even if you find the balance, right, and you work in the balance, something could happen, or the imbalance could get adapted to the balance that you've got, and then it could go back to being in balance. So I look at it like, instead of worrying too much about balance, because there's going to be some imbalance at some point, instead of worrying too much about balance, just do what you've got to do. You know, whether
you need to find the sweet spot, but not 50-50.
Even if you do, I feel like it's hard to sustain that. It's beyond hard to sustain that, because say you manage to find the balance, you manage to find the sweet spot, and then something external that is of importance to you happens, the sweet spot is gone.
Yeah, sure.
You can forget about it. And anytime something external can happen. So what I had to come to realize myself is that instead of trying to look for the balance, try to know how to keep it under control. Try to figure out how to keep it balanced instead of trying to keep it balanced.
Understand your intention.
Be more flexible.
Understand your intention, and be more conscious of what you're doing.
For sure. It all helps, because when something external happens, you want to be able to deal with the external thing and then find your way back to what you were doing without,
I think,
it destroying the balance.
I think it is something that takes time, because
it does.
I do still struggle with it. Like,
me too.
As I told you, my mentality used to be completely just about instant gratification, and now it's the complete opposite. And now I'm trying to find somewhere in between, but it is really difficult, as you mentioned, and it's something that you got to work on and just see what works for you. And I think it's just really important to understand your intentions more. Why are you doing this thing? And are you running away from something? I mean, I'm talking about instant gratifications. Like, are you running away from your problems, from your emotions?
I feel like now I'm going to go back to my point, which is like, we're labeling things too much. Not here, but generally. Yeah. Even here, we're doing it a little bit too much, to be honest. But like, instead of labeling everything as like, okay, am I going after the instant gratification, or am I going after the delayed gratification here? What am I going after, and this and this? This is too much labeling. I feel like this, instead of it making things easier, it makes things more complicated.
This is the thing. These labels, they help you at the start,
but they make things more complicated.
They might backfire at some point.
Because once you've understood these labels and once you start to apply these labels to like almost everything that you've got in your life, every time you decide to do something, even if you decide like, okay, I want to eat right now instead of working, you're going to be asking yourself the question, am I going after the instant gratifications or am I going after the delayed gratifications here? You know, and then you start labeling everything. You start,
that's why
I think getting stuck in this loop of this and that, this or that.
But that's why I think labels are really important in the beginning, but you need, at some point you gotta stop using something and
everything in moderation, even moderation in moderation. Yeah. This is like rule number one.
Yeah. I mean, like the balance equation, as you mentioned before. So yeah, I think this should be enough for this episode. I've covered everything, and it was a really nice conversation, and it did make even the lessons that I've learned just because we talked about them and everything. Like it made things even more clear for me, and I noticed that there was a lot of points that we had the same lessons, but just from a different perspective, from a different way.
We had a lot of like we not crossfired, but we crossed each other, or we had like cross paths a lot.
Exactly, yeah.
Maybe like one or two that were different, but the rest of them were all
similar in some way.
And then, like the end point of them was the same. It's just that we took different approaches to them,
and that was a good thing to connect all the dots.
It was.
So yeah, that's it for this episode. So thank you for watching, and see you in the next one.
See you next time.